So I just want to continue on that discussion about the user interface, and then maybe talk about the control arrays. Or maybe what we do is I've kind of shown you how to do the user interface. Maybe I show you how to set up the control arrays today, on the one side at least. So let's do that today. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with yours, and then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. Let me bring up my dice roller. I wonder why I have two. I think because I was doing that same thing. I was trying to make sure I don't mess it up. So let's see what my frame looks like here. Yeah, this one, that's the unchanged one. So that was my spare copy in case I messed things up. Looks like I did. This doesn't compile. Yeah, so I think where we left it last time is here. Now the question is, I'm getting some kind of error. So let me look in my source to see where those errors are. Here. Oh. Hold buttons, incompatible types. J toggle buttons cannot be converted to a dice toggle button. Oh, I see. Yeah, so when, I have this problem where I'm trying to use this fancy toggle button, right, that has the dice pictures on it. But anytime I change the UI, it breaks the build because of that. And then I have to copy this code up there. So what I do is I grab that. Actually, it's in here where I have to copy. See, right now, these are all just JToggle buttons. And I have to copy this code in there. That's the code you're not supposed to touch. In fact, we talked about NetBeans not even allowing you to edit this. So you can't even edit this in NetBeans because they really don't want you to do this. But if you're careful and you know what you're doing, you can actually fix it. So let me fix that first. But I'll have to use like Notepad++, I guess. So
when I was trying to add my dice in, like I looked it up on Google, and it says that you can like add different components to the UI builder. Like you can just add a different class.
Yeah, you add a new class, and I just my problem is I haven't figured out how to do that yet. It looked pretty complicated the first time I looked at it. I went, oh, geez, it's a lot of work.
For me, I just dragged the class in. I just dragged it from the left into the UI builder.
Oh, really? Okay, if it's that simple, yeah, we could do that. Maybe that's what we do. But for now, let me play with that, over the weekend and see if I can get that to work. That would be nice if we could just drag the dice toggle buttons in and make it work. Okay, so let me find out where my source is. I'm on another screen right now. This would be where teacher project folders, yeah. Java 2, dice roller. Yeah, so I'm going in. Yeah, let me just drag it over so I can show you what I'm doing. So here's the dice roller, and I'm in here, and I could even use Notepad if I wanted to change this, but here I am in the dice frame, and all I'm doing is taking this replacement code that I have commented out, and plopping it in here. I wonder why I have that. It's weird. I'm including the roll button as well. So I'm replacing all that. I probably don't need to replace those two because they're the same. And then the other thing I have to do is here at the bottom, and of course all the code is expanded, is I grab these where they're actually being defined, and I paste them in here. Okay, and then I save that, and then I go back into NetBeans. And NetBeans notices, well, I think we'll get that update. If we actually look at it, here's the hidden code, and you can see it has the dice toggle buttons in there. So now, notice my errors went away, and now I should be able to compile and run. Yeah, I was a little surprised last time that it didn't run, but I forgot about our little UI problem. And the dice still work, and we can still play the game, right? These are just J buttons, right? These are supposed to be toggle buttons as well, or maybe they are toggle buttons. Those aren't toggle buttons. So I dragged the wrong kind of buttons on when we did it the first time. Those are supposed to be toggle buttons. You press them down, they stay down, and then they disable themselves too. So that's a problem. Okay, so let's fix some of the issues then. I'll go back to the design window. And, here we're all messed up because we have the wrong kind of buttons. Now, can you change the type of the buttons after you create them? And the answer is, well, no. But let's just check their size so we can get the size the same. I think the size was, yeah, here it is. It's the maximum size. It's the actual size. Yeah, the problem is a lot of this stuff, yeah. It's kind of hard to find because it's not in alphabetical order. Or they group it sometimes in a strange way. I'm just trying to get the size of the button. 79 by 25, that's kind of weird. Okay, so maybe that's our size.
Is it the bit down by layout at the bottom?
Layout.
141 by 42?
Oh, 141 by 42, yeah, that's probably it. 141 by 42. Okay, so we'll make that size buttons then. So 141 by 141 by 42. Okay. Oof, what a mess. Okay. So now I'm going to grab the right type of button. Toggle button. And we do 141 by, let's just type it in. It's usually better. You can always do that. It just goes straight to the property window. That looks good. And then, I wonder if our spacing got messed up. This one. That was interesting. It automatically spaced them out. That was weird. If you put them too close, see how it automatically spaces. So I really like this UI designer. Even when you try to do something wrong, it fixes your problem. So anyway, it's a really good UI designer. I don't say that very often about software, so I'm a pretty picky software user. So this is actually well done. This is one of the main reasons I like using NetBeans, is for this reason. All right, so now we have the right type of control. So that's the first step, is to get the right type. Next is, okay, so how do we set this up so that we can process these buttons in a loop, right? Even though, like we mentioned this last time, even though it says JToggle button 1, doesn't mean that's really its name. It's just, that's, since I did a copy and paste thing, but it's actually given different names to these. If you look up here at the top, this is JToggle button 2 and JToggle button 3, even though it says 1 on it, they actually do have different names. What you can do here, be careful not to double click on it. You can actually edit them in place. Just don't double click really fast on them, or otherwise it'll create an event handler for you, which you will need at some point. But you can go in and put the right stuff on it. Another thing I like to do is actually change the name so it's meaningful when you look in the code. So for example, here this is JToggle button 1. That really doesn't tell you, although you might be able to leave it because it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And you say, well, JToggle button 1 is for the ones, and if you remember that, that's okay. But what I would do is, here is the actual name. If you click on code, there's the variable name. You could say JToggle button. That seems like a mouthful. What I usually do is, I'll remember it's a toggle button, obviously, so I'll just say button aces. Okay, and that way it gives it a name. that's easy to remember. And then do something similar here. So you call this one button 2s, right? And go on like that. I usually use those prefixes, button, text field. I might use txt for a text field, btn for a button, just so that you know what you're talking about on each of the components. I'm not going to do all of these, but that's kind of the idea, okay? So once you have them renamed, then the next question is, okay, so how do we get them into an array? Well, first we have to create that array. Now, here, if you look here, here's all the dice toggle buttons, right? Do we have those in the array? I don't know if we have those in an array. Let's look at the bottom and see. I'm going to hide the generated code. Yeah, so see the dice toggle button array? So we want to make arrays to hold our upper scoring categories. So we'd make, you'd say private maybe this would be JToggle button, because that's the data type, right? It's still a JToggle button, even though we're renaming it. And then we'll call this one upper score buttons. Just use something plural. Anytime you have an array, I usually tend to make that variable name or the name of the array plural, since it holds lots of stuff. So upper score buttons, when you see that in your code, you can say, oh, okay, that's the buttons for scoring. Yeah, that'll work for me, right? JToggle button, doesn't know what that is. Did I misspell it?
I don't think it's imported.
Well, it's right there. See, that's the problem.
Yeah, but that's got the full path.
Oh, it's got the full path, yeah, so that's why. Okay, so we'll add the import. I don't know why they didn't do that. Save them a lot of typing here, but they're not typing. It's all generated by the computer, so what do they care? Okay, so we have our upper score buttons. Now, once you have that set up, then the tedious part here, because we're putting them in arrays so we can process them in the loop. That makes it more efficient. We can use for loop or a while loop to actually process them. But the tedious part is actually hitching up all the buttons once you have it all done, right at the start. So where would you do that? I would do it here. Notice our hold buttons again got messed up because we changed the UI, right? Anytime I change the UI, I lose this code again. So I'll do some research on that. Maybe if it's as simple as you're saying it, maybe we can actually pull that off. I don't know. But I remember the last time I looked at it, it wasn't simple at all. You'd have to get a degree in compiler design to be able to add them. Okay, so next thing you do is he would say this. He would say upper score buttons sub, and then now you have a choice here. Since the buttons mean something like 1 and 2, it'd be odd to assign the aces to button or index 0, right? But I think we're smart enough to keep that in our head, so we could do that. That's going to be the first button, and then we just have to put the name of the button. Well, what's the name of the button? Well, we called it button aces, right? Okay, and then you go through all the other ones now. I'm just gonna, there's 6 of them, right? And then be careful when you're doing this kind of thing where you're cutting and pasting, because you can make a lot of errors really quickly by pasting errors. They're really bad. Here we called it 2s. This one we didn't rename yet, I don't think. So this one's still called J toggle button 3, right? I thought that's what it was called.
J is lowercase.
Is it lowercase?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because it's not a class. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we'll copy that. the time we got. We're slowly running out of time. I have another class at 1, so we have about 9 minutes left. I just want to show you the process here of setting up these control arrays, and then maybe how to use them really quickly. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So now you have the array set up. Kind of clunky, right? Did we ever allocate space for this array yet? And the answer is no, we haven't. We haven't done this. See up here, we create the array up here, and we haven't done that yet. So I usually do that right before. So we have to actually call the array constructor. So we would say upper score buttons equals new, and then these are JToggle buttons. Right? And then you put in the size. And the size is num sides, right? Num sides is a constant that has 6 in it, and that represents the number of sides, which represents each number. And so that would be good to use that. Say you, for some reason, want to use the Yahtzee game that has 8-sided die, and then you can still make this work, and you don't have to change any code. That'd be kind of weird, though. All right. So now the array is allocated, and you're assigned the slots in each of the array, right? So why would you ever use this question? Well, when you start the game, they shouldn't be able to choose a scoring category right off the start because there's nothing to score because nothing's been rolled yet. Those buttons need to be disabled. So, so at some point you're going to have to you're going to need a method that disables all the what happened there? Disables all the upper scoring categories. So so maybe somewhere in your code, why does this have a main method in? Oh, that's right. So you would say, it's complaining for some reason. Yeah, I'm in some kind of weird mode right now.
I don't think it lets you edit like the little gray lines.
Yeah, maybe so. Okay, so maybe I put it here. Yeah, right here. Okay, so we'll put these in a group somewhere, but we're going to create well, should it be public? It should be private because nobody's going to be calling this from the outside. So you say private void set enable upper score buttons. Now on videos, I'm not very consistent on my naming. It's clear I'm not. But what this does is it sets it whether it's enabled or disabled. Okay, and then you would pass in a Boolean saying, maybe I call this is enabled, or maybe say enable. Okay, so you say false if you want to disable it, true if you want to enable it. This makes it so you don't have to write 2 methods, one to disable it and one to enable it. I see people do that a lot. And I go, no, why don't you just write one that takes a flag and then sets it to that. And then here you say for int I equals 0, I less than num dice I plus plus, right? So that'll go through from 0 to 5. And that's the numbering on an array. Here's the body of an array. And then we can use nums, yeah, sides, sorry. You don't want to get those confused because if you do, everything falls to pieces. And then you would say, what's the upper score button sub I, right? Dot set. And there's one called set enabled. See that one there? And we'll pass in the enable flag. So this will go through all of the, and so with this one line of code, it goes through all 6 of them and just disables them all right at the start. And in our UI, once we start using our state machine in our UI, that's going to loop through them and either enable them or disable them whenever we want. And you can do that in a really tight loop. And that's why we make the arrays. So it seems like a lot of overkill and a lot of too much work to set up the arrays and set up. But once you start using them, you're able to address them in a group and disable and enable them as you see fit with little functions like this. And so we're going to write a lot of little UI functions that do these kind of things. So anyway, that's the process of hitching up your controls to the arrays. Now you'd also make an array for all the text boxes there, because you want them to be well, are they ever enabled? Yeah, I guess you enable and disable them, but you set them to read only as a property over in the property window when you set them up initially. When you design the window, make sure to set those to read only, because the user shouldn't be able to change their scores and type in there. That's just for show. It's just to show them what the score is. And the computer's going to do all the calculations. You'll need one of these for the dice. The dice are already in an array, right? So you can enable and disable them just like this. You make another function or method for doing that. And then you do the same thing for the other side too. Sometimes you have to enable only those scoring categories that haven't been used yet. And that one's a little bit more tricky, right? Because if you disable everything, but you don't want to enable the ones that they've already chosen, right? So you have to be more selective about how you enable it. And so we'll have to write a method for that. So anyway, that's control arrays, and that'll help us keep our UI working correctly and not allowing the user to do things they shouldn't, like saving dice from their last roll for their current roll. a lot easier to get Yahtzees that way. All right, so I guess I have to run off my other class. Is there any questions before I go?
No.
Okay. Well, if you have any problems, let me know. Send me an email and I'll help you out. Apart from that, have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you on Monday. Remember, we only have 4 class periods left, and so we got a lot of work to do before that. So if you can spend some time on this, that would be a good thing. All right?